Hey, welcome into sportsBIT. Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy Wednesday, April 5th. Big game breakdown. The 1 seed on the line in the East on ESPN. Cavs and the Celtics. Let's kick around the Braves and the Mets as well. Cologne against his former team against deGrom. And the deep dive. Masters preview with Brady Kannon. And as always, the play of the day. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books and the Romo news. In a second, how about some bad beats? Raptors led by 19 in the second quarter. Lost by 18 as a three-point dog. And hell broke loose. Welcome back, Lance Stephenson, as he lays it in instead of dribbling it out at the end.
It didn't take Lance Stephenson long to start providing a spark for the Indiana Pacers. I mean, if you ever want to see a tale of two halves, this is it. Now, the Raptors dominated this game. They're up 45-26 on Indiana's home floor. A Pacers team that's supposed to be fighting for a playoff spot in a tight chase. And Toronto, with that 19-point lead, all of a sudden runs into a hot Lance Stephenson and Paul George are getting hot in that ballgame. And Stephenson, you read the quotes. He's energized that locker room. Indiana's a better team right now than they were a week ago.
Yeah, and the Wizards notched their 17th win this year when trailing by double digits. The Hornets hit 26 of their first 42 shots, but struggled the rest of the way, and they couldn't get stops down the stretch.
No, they sure couldn't. I mean, they only hit 14 more shots for the rest of the ballgame. But it's worth noting, we called out the Wizards' defense as a team on yesterday's sportsBIT. So when I run into a quote like this, I want to always make sure I include it on the show the next day. Here's a quote from Steve Clifford. Even though the Hornets scored 111 points against Washington, quote, "It was all their defense. It was all started with their defense, which is their game. They converted it into easy baskets on the other end of the floor. They turned up the intensity. We just had a couple of ridiculous turnovers that changed the momentum of the game, and that was the difference." But yeah, if you had Toronto, you were feeling good. If you had Charlotte, you were feeling good. Not by the end of the game. Two tough beats. We're not going to call them bad beats, but tough beats in the NBA.
All right. Yeah, fair enough. That's good. Here's a bad bet. Oh, man. They were betting the Bulls, and why not? They're playing the Knicks without Porzingis. The Bulls have been playing good ball, trying to get in the playoffs, bet up from 3-5, and they lose. And they were down 20 in the first half. That's embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it all over the association yesterday. Must win does not equal will win. And the markets will always bet the must-win teams. And the Bulls, we talked about how good they've been playing. They were due for a flat game. They got a flat game. They were hammered. They were minus 17 on the boards. And everyone other than Jimmy Butler, just 23 of 66 from the floor. For a dead team, the Knicks, they show up every couple of games.
But hey, the market's new on this one. Horrible for the books. The Sixers were the only team that have yet to cover as a home favorite, and it was nothing but Brooklyn money. Brooklyn went off the favorite. They scored 141 points.
Yeah, and, this was the ultimate no-show game for Philadelphia. And the Sixers have been a great point spread team. We've loved them on this show. I've loved them in my pocket. Last night was not one of those ball games. They were down 81-54 at halftime. Okay, the first time all season a team scored at least 40 points in each of the first two quarters. Sixers have had better nights, and that was not a good result for the books. The wise guys loaded up on Brooklyn, and the Nets deserved to be chalked by tip-off.
81 points in the first half. Holy cow. Thunder on ESPN. No problems with the Bucks. Thunder bet up from 4.5 to 6. They won 110-79. And Jason Kidd said no mas at the end, took everybody out.
Yeah, and it's probably a smart move for Kidd. Milwaukee still very live in what's looking like a very competitive Eastern Conference race for those final spots. And you're down 24 at the break. Those Bucks starters, less than half of the floor minutes overall. Kidd made the right move, but not a good result for the house with nothing but OKC money.
More bad for the books. How about a 30-cent and a 40-cent move with two baseball winners? Let's start with the Astros.
Yeah, Lance McCullers is a guy who the betting markets are very excited about right now. I had two different MLB guys text me over the previous 48 hours. Watch out for McCullers. Hey, did you notice McCullers? He's one of those guys, and he came out, 61 of his 88 pitches were strikes, threw 7 strikeouts against 2 walks. The Astros bet up to minus 160, win, and get the money.
And here's the Indians again, 2 for 2 in Texas. They were bet up from 125 to 165. Carrasco got the win. They won 4-3, and the bullpen closes the door.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, these two moves right here with Carrasco and McCullers, two guys that do not have these dramatic, extended track records of success at the Major League Baseball, at the Major League level. It gives you the concept that the markets are betting on the come. They're not betting the results that you've seen. They're saying, we like the metrics on these guys. These are pitchers we want to be on. So if you've got ideas on a starter you want to back, you definitely want to be ready to go early in this market right now, because the markets are really pricing some of these guys in shocking fashion to me. I mean, you see the Indians at minus 165 last night in Texas, and cashing that ticket tells us they're going to keep doing what they've been doing.
All right, how about this? Westgate Superbook. Let's throw that graphic up there. Odds to win the national title already for next year. What do you think? Anybody there?
No, there's nobody there. And this is your classic tourist trap bet. And I'm not trying to be rude if you're betting futures on any of this stuff, but we don't know who's leaving for the NBA and who's coming back. We don't know who the commitments are for the fall. The reason that every sportsbook in town here in Las Vegas will hang sheets for every future that they can throughout the summer months is because whenever people come to town and throw a couple of bucks on their favorite team, and it gradually, they build up some handle doing that. But these odds aren't going to change a whole lot between now and September and October. And even on the launch, even on the teams that aren't on here, your UCLA isn't on this list. They're 25-1. Oregon's at 60-1. South Carolina Final Four team at 100-1. Georgetown with Patrick Ewing 200-1. We just put really a lot of the top teams on this list from the Westgate Superbook, but these are for entertainment purposes only now. I would not recommend any future bets at this stage of the year for college hoops.
How about the big news when you woke up yesterday morning? Romo in, Sims out. That's good news.
It's a miracle. It's wonderful news.
Yeah, and by the way, the only profession in America you can start at the top without any experience, broadcasting. Romo, no experience, takes over as the #1 analyst with Jim Nantz, but oh man, what a blow for the Texans. They're going to go into the season as Savage as their starter, Whedon the backup, and they're going to draft a quarterback. I can't believe it. Romo calls it quits, and he goes into the broadcast booth.
Yeah, and look, I mean, for the Texans, let's start with this way. They're one quarterback away from being a legit Super Bowl contender. All right, so if they can figure out something, they can cobble together something, if they can get something out of Tom Savage, who didn't show a whole lot given his opportunity last year, but they're not far away if they can make a move. But for us, Pauly, Phil Simms, I'm sorry, he was the worst. The absolute worst. And to see, I thought we were going to have another 20 years of the guy. To see him gone, I don't care, Tony Romo, if he's no good. He's got to be better than Simms. Thank you. Thank you. It makes football more watchable for me.
Not a great teammate. I would call Cutler if I'm the Texans. What do you have to lose at this point with Savage? And we know Brandon Whedon can't play either. All right, up next, big game breakdown. The 1 seed on the line on ESPN, 5 o'clock Pacific. What a game. The Cavs and the Celtics. And we'll get to the Mets and the Braves as well. And the Masters preview with Brady Kannon on sportsBIT. Betting Insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on sportsBIT, Betting Insight today. As always, live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Big game breakdown powered by UWager. Cavs and the Celtics, no line. It's a back-to-back for Cleveland. Market's unsure what Lou and the Cavs will do here. And the money quote last night after the win against Orlando, LeBron said, guys, I've been to 6 straight finals. Don't ask me about important regular season games. Your line is what if everyone plays?
If everyone plays, Boston's going to be the chalk here. We're looking at the Celtics minus 2.5, minus 3 at home. That looks like the line to me. But again, that's only if everyone plays. And we're going to see this repeatedly over the back, what do we got, about a week and a half left in the regular season for the NBA. Lots of games aren't going to be lined in the early morning hours when we record. So it's just how it is. We're going to have to talk about some games without lines and make assumptions about where these lines are going to be, at least for the next week or so.
Games on ESPN, 5 o'clock Pacific. Home team wins all 3. Cleveland was laying 10.5, won 128-122. December 29th, Cleveland was laying 6. They won by 6 in a shootout. And then March 1st, Boston was 2. They won 103-99. Both teams are tied for the 1 seed. But if Cleveland wins, obviously it's 3 out of 4. They're up 1 in essentially a 2-game lead because they would control the tiebreaker. Look at the remaining schedule after this. Boston goes to Atlanta and Charlotte, and they get Brooklyn and Milwaukee at home. The Cavs have a home-and-home against Atlanta. Tough road game at Miami, and then home against Toronto. What do we think of the Lou effect here, Teddy?
Well, I know this, that Cleveland has the tougher of the two schedules down the stretch. All right, so this game likely to go a long way towards determining who does have home court advantage in the Eastern Conference. And, you know, in reading about it, it appears to me it means a lot more for Boston than it does for Cleveland. Cleveland knows they can win games on the road. For the Celtics, very much a statement if they can get this done. Before I talk about the Lou effect, sorry, Pauly, excuse me. I want to talk about the point spreads for those first three matchups. And you put it out. The first game, the Cavs are minus 10.5. The second game, the Cavs are minus 6. The third game, the Celtics are 2. Now, obviously, the Celtics are 2-point chalk at home, but it just goes to show you where Cleveland was power rated in comparison to Boston earlier in the season. The first game was, a week into the campaign, and the Cavs were minus 10.5 at home against Boston. We're not seeing Cleveland going to be double-digit chalk against the Celtics, regardless of how many teams this play, how many games these two teams play, the rest of the way. So we talk about the Lou effect, and it makes a ton of sense. Here, let's start with this. Look at the post-All-Star break stats. Let's put these graphics up here. All right. The Celtics with the better record. They don't have this better offensive numbers, but dramatically better defensive numbers than Cavs, using points per 100 possession, as always, like we do here on sportsBIT. And, of course, the net is showing that the Celtics about 4 points better than Cleveland since the All-Star break. But here's the second graph, and look at this. The Lou effect on the Cleveland defense. Now, we start with 2016. The pre-All-Star break, they're number 7. 2016 post-All-Star break, they're number 12. Then 2017 pre-break, they're 20, and now they're 29th since the All-Star break. Now note, that first little segment was mostly David Blatt. Since then, it's been all Tyronn Lue, and the Cavs defense has declined in every schedule pocket since Tyronn Lue took over as the Cleveland Cavaliers head coach.
Knockout information there. Stevens, 3-1-1 ATS against Lou. Is there an advantage at point guard for the Celtics? Boston can use Bradley or Smart on Kyrie. Cleveland does not have a counter for Isaiah Thomas except for Kyrie, and he can't guard Teddy. You got Shumpert and Smith. They aren't quick enough to stay in front of him, and Williams is too old and can't defend either. You know, that's the problem. Everyone they brought in can score, but none of them can play defense. They brought in Korver. You know, Fry couldn't defend as well, although they had him last year, and they bring in both Williams. But the real plus-minus and defense and point guards of the 32 track, look at this. Isaiah's 32nd, and Kyrie is 26th, Teddy.
Yeah, I mean, we're not talking about a great defensive matchup at the point. And remember, Shumpert was the guy who was kind of supposed to be their perimeter defensive stopper when they brought him in. So he was the one guy that kind of has that defensive mentality. But, yeah, Kyrie's not staying in front of Isaiah. Darren Williams isn't staying in front of Isaiah. But Isaiah's not staying in front of anyone anyway. The difference is that Thomas can be hidden. They can hide him on Shumpert. Maybe they can hide him on Smith. Irving is basically going to be forced to guard Thomas, and that may provide a legitimate matchup edge for the Boston Celtics somewhere down the line. Don't know if it's going to matter tonight, but it could matter before the season is through.
Make sure everyone's playing, and then remember those LeBron quotes after the win against Orlando about get out of here with a big regular season game. I've been to 6 straight finals. All right, game number 2, liveoddsportsbookreview.com. Braves and the Mets. Mets $1.90, 7 the total. Big sexy, Cologne against deGrom. Now, why did a bad team go out and get some old pitchers like Cologne and Dickey? Here's the Braves GM. We went through way too many games last year when we had to take our starting pitcher out in the 2nd and the 3rd. If I were a young pitcher and I see Cologne at 43 and Dickey at 42, I would start to think to myself, what do I need to do to be like them? They can help our young pitchers grow. Bartolo's a fun guy to be around. I think back to John Hart signing him 28 years ago. Think about that for a minute, 28 years, end quote. ERA 2016, the Atlanta starters, 4.67. Their bullpen innings, 567. That is a franchise record.
Yeah, and I mean, the one thing that Cologne can still do after all this time, the guy can eat up innings. And when you look at that Braves bullpen, they need everybody they possibly can to eat up innings for Atlanta. And plus, all the quotes out of Cologne, I mean, whatever, he's been around the majors for 28 years. But all the quotes are, he's great in the locker room. The teammates love him. Here's Braves catcher Anthony Recker, who played with Cologne in New York. Quote, there are not too many guys, and when you find out they're going to be on your team, you go, yes, that's awesome. You are truly just genuinely excited just to see him again. Have him walk through the door for 162 games. Guys here were asking me, what's Bartolo like? All I had to say was, he's the best. And this is a bright guy. I mean, Cologne hasn't lasted 20 years in the big leagues without using his noggin. He's one of the smartest pitchers in the sport, and he gets to face a lineup that he knows very well. Of course, 44 and 34, 3.91 ERA over 95 starts with the Mets the last 3 seasons.
deGrom looks like he fell off in 2016, but it's worth another look. You see this graphic, 2015, 14-8 with a 2.54, 2016, 7-8 with an ERA of 3. But he was pitching through an elbow injury late. Last year, his first 24 starts, 7-5 with a 2.30. Last 3 starts, 0-3 with an ERA of almost 10. They should have shut him down earlier, but they didn't. And he was ready in the spring. 17 strikeouts, 2 walks, with 12 hits allowed over 15 innings pitched. And some good quotes from his catcher after his 3rd spring start. He looks like a video game when he's getting ahead like that. He was getting ahead today. Gives us more of an advantage to keep them off balance, especially when he's not only throwing fastballs. There's the end quote there. And a good start by Thor. See if deGrom can follow it up in this one coming up.
Yeah, I mean, the big question with Atlanta, can the Braves score against anyone? Let alone a pitcher like Thor. Freddie Freeman, 3 hits in the opener. All their players combined for 4 with 0 walks and 11 strikeouts.
Up next, the Masters. Brady Kannon to preview the weather, the wind, and picks he likes, long shots. Coming up next on sportsBIT. Betting Insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.
Back on sportsBIT, Betting Insight today. Time for the deep dive. Fire the cannon. Brady Kannon, SBR contributor and golf expert. Time to talk the Masters. Brady, let's start with weather and potential wind. How could that affect the course in this tournament?
Well, it might affect it a little more than we thought last week, Pauly. They're calling for 10 to 15 mile an hour winds pretty much every day. Looks like it'll be a little bit calmer on Sunday. But that 10 to 15 has increased a little bit. There is a chance of showers on Friday. And PGA Tour standards, and as good as these players are, a 10 mile an hour wind or less won't affect too much. But when you start to get into the 12 to 15, 19 mile an hour winds, that's certainly going to play some tricks on these guys. And Augusta National, the course is so old and mature. These trees are very, very high. So it's often very difficult to even tell what direction the wind is blowing because it's so high up in the trees, and it won't necessarily be something you can feel down on the ground, on ground level at the golf course, but it will affect your ball when it gets up above the tree line.
Do you like to play guys that are on fire on a nice run here, or are you always looking for value or potential long shots?
Well, a little of both, really. I mean, you have to consider current form. Guys, you don't want to necessarily back guys that are really struggling because when you get to a major championship, it's not a place that you can just flip a switch and turn your game around. So you do have to look at guys that are currently playing well, have a top 10 or 2 on the season, maybe even a win. And you also have to look at course form, how they've played this tournament before. Yeah. You do want to look at long shots too, but there are some factors. This stat, it's widely publicized. A Masters rookie has not won this tournament since Fuzzy Zeller did 38 years ago. So you have to have some experience on the course, and I do look at current form as well.
All excellent points. How about Bubba Watson's chances?
Well, he's a guy that's flying a little bit under the radar, and it's interesting that you bring him up. I mean, he's only won this thing twice, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard to discount him too much. Now, I've seen odds about as high as 40, maybe a little more than 40 to 1. I believe locally in town he's closer to 30 to 1. But I would say at something more than 40-1, he's pretty good value. Obviously, he's got course form, having won here twice before, but he doesn't have great current form. He's not playing great Bubba Watson golf yet this year. He switched his golf ball, and you wouldn't think switching a ball takes a lot of adjustment, but it has for Bubba so far.
How about Jon Rahm? Tell people about this guy, and he was 100-1. And now he's down to 20 at some places.
Yeah, he's really amazing, and he's a lot of fun. Great for the new landscape of golf. A young 22-year-old Spaniard that went to Arizona State. And, they talked about him not too long ago on one of the tournament broadcasts that he plays a lot of golf with Phil Mickelson. Mickelson's brother is his coach. And, of course, Mickelson went to ASU, so they play a lot of rounds together casually. And Mickelson said, I can't beat this guy. And that was proven when he went all the way to the finals with Dustin Johnson in the match play just 2 weeks ago. This guy's the real deal. And, yeah, if you've got a ticket with him at 100-1, that's a great spot to be in. I jumped on board when he was 40-1, but you're right. Now he's down to 20-1 and even less.
Why the big move on Thomas Pieters, who was 200-1, and now you're seeing 40-1, top 50 player?
Yeah, Thomas Pieters is another guy like Jon Rahm who's really just stormed onto the scene. And he is a Masters rookie like Rahm as well. So, they've got that going against them, but they are both excellent players. Pieters went to the University of Illinois, but he's from Belgium. He's got a lot of distance. He's a really good putter. And those are two things that that fit into the Masters formula. Hit it long and putt really well, and Pieters has that.
Golf expert Brady Kannon, our guest, SBR contributor at Las Vegas Golfer on Twitter. How about Koepka, Jimmy Walker, both 75-1?
I like them both, Pauly. Jimmy Walker hits the ball a long ways and putts well. Those are two of the very important things that you're going to need at Augusta. And Koepka's the same exact way. Hits the ball a really long way and has an excellent short game. Now, Jimmy, I like him because he got that first major last year at the PGA. So he's got that monkey off of his back, so to speak. But, that might not be the correct term, but I think more so he's shown the ability where he can handle the pressure down the stretch and win a major championship. And having done that once, I think that gives him a good chance to do it again, whether it be here or down the road at a future major. He's got that experience now and what it takes to win a championship of this nature. Brooks Koepka, he has not won a major yet, but he's done well at the Masters in just 2 appearances, finished 33rd and 21st. And like I say, he's got the skill set to do well here. You can get him at about 60-1 or so, and his odds actually have gone up. He started out at about 40-1 and up now to 60-1 because he has not started this year out well. He made an equipment change. His scrambling stats, you really need to be a good scrambler at Augusta, and typically Koepka's been pretty good, but he's ranked in the lowest half of the PGA Tour this year, over 200 and something in tour scrambling this year. So we'll see if he can turn that part of his game around this week, but otherwise he does have the tools.
How about the chalk and the heavy hitters? DJ, Phil, Spieth, McIlroy, what do you think?
Well, I think McIlroy is really interesting. It's hard to get a take on what he's going to do this week. When he showed up at the WGC Mexico, he did very, very well, and we were unsure what he would do because he was coming off of a rib injury that he suffered back in January. He seems to be in perfectly fine form. I think it'll come down to putting for Rory. He had the 54-hole lead here in 2011 before shooting an 80 on Sunday and fell back all the way to 15th place. It's the only major he needs to complete the career Grand Slam. And I think when Rory is at his best, he can beat anybody, even Dustin Johnson. And Johnson, I think he can beat anybody right now the way he's going. He's won 3 tournaments in a row. He won the Genesis in L.A., he won the WGC Mexico, and just 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago rather, won the WGC Match Play. And that's a tough thing going against him, if you will. Can he win a 4th tournament in a row? That has not been done since Tiger did it, I believe, in 2008. So, to win 4 events in a row like that is a lot of not only physical but a lot of mental pressure, what it takes to get to the finish line in a golf course. But you can't argue the way he's playing right now. He deserves to be the favorite. I wouldn't be surprised if he won. And I'll tell you, Pauly, one of the reasons he is the favorite and one of the reasons he's the number one player in the world right now is because he's improved his scrambling and putting tremendously. We always knew Dustin Johnson could bomb the ball and hit greens in regulation and could really overpower a golf course, but now he's really added that touch game around the greens, and that makes him very powerful at Augusta.
Anything else we should look out for? Other people out there maybe I didn't mention you want to throw maybe $10 on or somebody out there?
Well, I think you've nailed a lot of the good plays. Thomas Pieters, John Rahm, those are – Rahm is not such a long shot anymore. Pieters certainly is. Another guy is Tyrrell Hatton. The Englishman has been on fire, finishing in the top 10 in 4 out of his last 5 events. A lot of people really like him this week because he can really get hot with the putter. Paul Casey's another Englishman that a lot of people are high on. Great ball striker, was excellent in the match play, and has finished 4th here last year and 6th the year before that. You can find him at about 40-1. The Masters is an interesting tournament. It's been, 8 out of the last 10 years that you'd have to be ranked in the top 30 in the world to have been a winner. So you really are looking at a pretty chalky event when you consider it's going to come down possibly to the top 30 ranked players in the world. The other thing is you have a small field. It's only 95 players. And if you could throw out all those rookies, with a rookie having not won in 38 years, now you trim that field even further. So, they play the same golf course year in and year out. It's the only major that does that. So you can look at a lot of trends and how this thing plays out year in and year out. And, you can probably whittle it down to maybe 15, 20 guys that should win this thing.
Excellent job as always. Thanks for 5 great minutes, and we'll talk to you for the next major. Good luck out there, Brady.
Thanks, Pauly.
Great job by Brady Kannon. He'll be our golf guy here. Fun to talk Masters. It should be an exciting 4 days. Money time play of the day. How about some long shots? Let's take a shot here. Let's go Oosthuizen and Bubba Watson at 30-1, and Koepka and Jimmy Walker at 75-1. We did pretty well. We did okay last year with the golf picks, and we cashed a 10-1 ticket, I think, on one of the last majors as well. So enjoy that. And Teddy, Robbie Vino Part 2 coming up. All right, bullpen.
Yeah, I was able to reschedule it. So my bonehead move erasing the interview, we'll get to do it again. You get some good quality time with Rob Vino on tomorrow's show here on sportsBIT. Betting Insight today. Also, be sure to tune in to our live chat every Thursday night, 8 o'clock Pacific time, right here on SBRpicks.com.